Neil Gaiman is the English author of graphic novels and science fiction and fantasy short stories. Among his best-known works are Sandman, Coraline, and The Graveyard Book. Gaiman was born October the 11th, 1960 in Portchester, England. His mother, a pharmacist, and his father, the director of a company, encouraged their young son's reading habits, although even without such encouragement, Gaiman would probably have been an avid reader. He devoured every book he could get his hands on as a child, working his way through the entire local children's library and partway through the adult collection as well. As a child, he discovered his love of books, reading and stories, devouring the works of C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, James Branch Cabell, Edgar Allan Poe, Michael Moorcock, Ursula Le Guin, Gene Wolfe, and Gilbert Chesterton. A self-described feral child who was raised in libraries, Gaiman credits librarians with fostering a lifelong love of reading. "I wouldn't be who I am without libraries. I was the sort of kid who devoured books, and my happiest times as a boy were when I persuaded my parents to drop me off in the local library on their way to work, and I spent the day there. I discovered that librarians actually want to help you. They taught me about interlibrary loans." As a teenager, Gaiman began to outgrow the comic books he had loved as a child. He pursued a career in journalism in the 1980s in an attempt to gain the contacts that he would later need to get his work published. His first published piece of work came in 1984 when his short story Feather Quest came out in A Little Gold Book of Ghastly Stuff, which appeared in Imagine magazine. Gaiman's first book was a biography of the band Duran Duran, which took him 3 months to write. This was followed by Ghastly Beyond Belief, a book of quotations compiled with Kim Newman. His second book was a biography of Douglas Adams, Don't Panic, the official Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy Companion. Gaiman describes his early writing. "I was very, very good at taking a voice that already existed and parodying and pastiching it." Neil Gaiman then struck up a friendship with the graphic novel author Alan Moore and started writing his own comics, picking up the Marvelman series after Moore stepped down. Gaiman then went on to collaborate with Dave McKean on Violent Cases, Signal to Noise, and the tragical comedy or comical tragedy of Mr. Punch. He also earned himself a job working for DC Comics, starting with the 3-part series Black Orchid. This series revisits a character from DC's history, the crime-fighting heroine named in the title. Black Orchid is quite different from the typical female characters in comic books. Gaiman described her as vaguely feminist, ecological, essentially nonviolent. "I like the fact that at the end she doesn't get mad and start hitting people." For his next venture, DC asked Gaiman to revive another old character, and Gaiman chose the little-known Sandman, a character that originated in the 1940s. DC hired Gaiman to write a monthly serial featuring the Sandman, a career move intended to build the writer's reputation. Much to the surprise of both Gaiman and DC Comics, the Sandman series was an immediate hit. Gaiman began writing short stories before ever penning a comic book, and some of his stories and story poems have been collected into the volumes Angels and Visitations, which won an award for the International Horror Guild in 1995, and Smoke and Mirrors. As with his other writings, these collections range across many genres, from fantasy, science fiction, and horror to comedy and mystery. Gaiman's first novel was a comedic collaboration with English writer Terry Pratchett, Good Omens, the Nice and Accurate Prophecies of Agnes Nutter, Witch, in 1990, which was written over a period of several weeks in 1989. With Gaiman and Pratchett sharing their contributions over the phone, each working hard to make the other laugh hysterically. The novel uses slapstick comedy to address the most serious of subjects, the end of humankind. In 2003, Good Omens was named one of England's 100 best-loved novels in a poll conducted by the British Broadcasting Corporation. In 1996, Gaiman published Neverwhere, a novel that came about after he had written the script for a 6-part BBC series with the same title. Dissatisfied with the many compromises made during the filming of the series, Gaiman opted to regain control of his ideas by issuing the work as a novel. The book explores the adventures of Londoner Richard Mayhew, who encounters a girl named Dor, a visitor from an otherworldly place called London Below. Dor has the ability to travel between the two worlds, the real London and the fantastical underground London, and Mayhew accompanies her, helping her flee a pair of brutal assassins. This book is intended for the grades 7th through 12th grade, and its genres are horror, science fiction, and fantasy. For Stardust, Gaiman collaborated with artist Charles Vess to produce a short, richly illustrated fantasy novel. Described by many as an adult fairy story, Stardust tells the romantic tale of a young man battling powerful foes to retrieve a fallen star promised to his beloved. This book is intended for grade levels 7 through 12, and its genres are adventure, science fiction, and fantasy. Stardust was initially released as a 4-part illustrated series by DC Comics in 1997 and 1998. 1 year later, Spike Books issued a 1-volume version without illustrations. Critics raved, fans went wild, and plans were soon underway to make a Stardust movie. In 2007, Stardust was released in many major movie theaters. When American Gods was released, it became one of Neil Gaiman's best-selling books and won a number of awards, which include the Hugo Award for Best Novel in 2002, the Stoker Award for Best Novel in 2002, the Locus Award for Best Fantasy Novel in 2002, Nebula Award for Best Novel in 2003, and the Geffen Award for the Best Fantasy Book in 2003. In 2003, Gaiman released another work for young adult readers, the novel Coraline, which is intended for the grade levels 4th through 8th, and its genre is science fiction and fantasy. In this work, the title character, a young child, discovers a doorway in her new house that leads to a matching home in a different world. In that other world, a set of parents with pale skin and black button eyes ask Coraline to stay with them and be their daughter. Realizing that her own mother and father are in need of rescuing, Coraline then engages in a dangerous struggle with the other mother to retrieve her parents. This book has received the Hugo Award for the Best Novella in 2003, the Stoker Award for Best Work for Younger Readers in 2003, the Locus Award for Best Young Adult Novel in 2003, the Best Short Fiction Award in 2003, and the Nebula Award for Best Novella in 2004. An animated feature film based on Gaiman's Coraline, directed by Henry Selick and released in early 2009, secured a BAFTA for Best Animated Film and was nominated for an Oscar in the same category. Published in 2008, Neil Gaiman's offbeat novel, The Graveyard Book, is a quirky tale about nobody, Bod Owens, a human boy who was raised in a graveyard. Bod came to the graveyard as a toddler, escaping his parents' and siblings' murder by the man Jack. Adopted by Mr. and Mrs. Owens, Bod is raised among an eccentric cast of characters, most of whom are dead and inhabit the graveyard. Tutored by the spirits and given freedom of the graveyard, he learns special talents like fading in order to live in the graveyard comfortably and undetected, safe from the man Jack, who is still searching for him. First published in the UK at the end of 2008, The Graveyard Book has won the UK's Book Trust Prize for Teenage Fiction and the Newbery Medal, the highest honor given in US children's literature, as well as the Locus Young Adult Award and the Hugo Best Novel Prize. The awarding of the 2010 UK Killip Carnegie Medal makes Gaiman the first author ever to win both the Newbery Medal and the Carnegie Medal with the same book. Other awards include #1 New York Times bestseller, 61 weeks in the top 10, National Indie Bestseller, BookScan Bestseller, the ALA Notable Children's Book, the ALA Best Book for Young Adults, American Bookseller Association's Best Indie Young Adult Buzzbook, Dorothy Canfield Fisher Children's Book Award, the Chicago Tribune Young Adult Literary Prize, the Audio Publishers Association Audie Award, Audiobook of the Year, Thriller, Suspense, and Children's Titles for ages 8 through 12 categories, the Indie Bound Award, Horn Book Honor, Burr Warzola Award, the Midwest Bookseller's Choice Award, and the Book Trust Teenage Prize. This book is intended for the grades 4th through 12th grade, and the genres include science fiction and fantasy. Today you can visit Neil Gaiman's website at neilgaiman.com, where he updates his readers on his progress of new material. He writes a daily journal and has information on his old and new collection.